Please welcome with me back to Inspiration Today, Brigitte Gabriel, who's written an incredible book, Because They Hate, a survivor of Islam terror warns America. Brigitte, welcome back. I tell you, yesterday was we just got to like lift the covers here on this important subject of what the West, what Americans, what Christians need to know about Islam. And we left off yesterday talking about moderate Muslims. Where are they? Why aren't they speaking out?
Yeah, like I mentioned yesterday, actions speak louder than words. I believe this is a time where we need to challenge the so-called moderates in the West to stand up and be counted, because at this time the moderates have been defined by the radicals because of their silence. When you are not a part of the solution, you are a part of the problem. And the moderates have rendered themselves part of the criminality of Islam done in the name of religion, because when you do not stand up and condemn terrorism and barbarism done in your name, then the blood of the innocence is on your hands as much as it is on the hands of those who perpetrated terrorism. But here's what we need to clarify, David, to the American public and to the Western public in general. There is no difference between radical Muslims and moderate Muslims. Okay. We in the West judge others according to our own standards. You know, we think, they are the moderate Christians, and then they're the radical Christians, who are really, the Bible thumpers, as they call them, or whatever they want to define them in the West. In Islam, this thing of moderate Muslim is simply a concoction of Western minds trying to come up with justification or rationalization as to there couldn't be a lot of people agreeing with what is happening, and of course this is only the work of a small handful of extremists.
So you would say that's not true?
That is not true. In Islam, Islam is Islam. You are either a practicing Muslim or a non-practicing Muslim. There is no lukewarm. The difference between a radical and a moderate, and if we're going to call it a moderate according to Western standards, a radical Muslim is a Muslim who believes that the Quran is the word of God, the last word of God, and every single word in the Quran is sanctioned by God. A practicing Muslim, which I would like to call them a practicing and a non-practicing, instead of calling them a moderate and a radical. Okay. So let's say a practicing Muslim, or what the West would call a radical, is someone who prays 5 times a day, believes in the tenets of Islam, goes to mosque every Friday to pray.
All the pillars of the Islamic faith.
All the pillars of the Islamic faith. Believes that Islam is superior to any other religion on earth. A practicing Muslim believes that his wife is his property. God did not create women as equal to men. He can beat her, he can kill her, he can rape her, he can do anything to her as his property as sanctioned by God. A practicing Muslim believes that Christians and Jews are apes and pigs because they are cursed by Allah, according to the Hadith and the Sirah, the books accompanying the Quran and the words of the Prophet. He believes that the Christians and the Jews are the enemies of Allah. A practicing Muslim is someone who does not drink alcohol, who believes in the tenets of Islam. That is a practicing Muslim. A non-practicing Muslim is a Muslim who drinks, who believes we are equal to him as Christians and Jews or any other religions. And non-practicing Muslims believe that God is a loving God who created all people in his image, that we all should live equally, loving and in a harmony with each other. A non-practicing Muslim believes that his wife is worthy of his respect as his equal. He does not believe he has the right to kill her, to rape her, to beat her, to forbid her from receiving an education, who believes that his wife has a place outside of the home, who can go and work and accomplish and be all she can be as a woman as his equal.
But Brigitte, that's really not... help me out here, as a Westerner trying to understand what you're saying. That's really not then being a Muslim. When you talk about a non-practicing Muslim, it's almost as if they've created a new religion of their own, because the true religion of Islam teaches something quite different, which you've already articulated.
Exactly, teaches something completely different. And I think, David, what we are lacking in the West is education about Islam and what Islam is all about. We do need to understand it. It's like when people say Islam is a peaceful religion, like what you alluded to earlier, that our leaders, when we hear George Bush or Tony Blair or all the leaders leaders of the world talking about Islam is a religion of peace. Islam has been hijacked by the radicals. It's total nonsense. So you have the talking heads who come on television, who have PR companies that book them in all these TV shows, from CNN to Fox News to MSNBC to CBS and everything else, to talk to Americans about Islam. And you have these talking heads talking about Islam is a religion of peace. Islam means peace. No, Islam means submission, not peace. Salam means peace. But the two words sound so much alike that the ears of the Westerner cannot differentiate between the sounds of the two words. There's a huge difference between salam, peace, and Islam, submission. Islam is a religion of submission where all other non-Muslims must submit to Islam or be killed.
So is that their agenda?
That is their agenda. When we also listen to the talking heads and they talk about the verses in the Quran talking about how peaceful Islam is, and they quote you verses about how in Islam they talk about the people of the book, how the Prophet Muhammad talked about the people of the book and the respect of the people of the book, the Christians and the Jews. But what they don't tell you is in the beginning of Islam, when the Prophet Muhammad was trying to preach Islam, and his own people in Mecca would not accept him as the Prophet and would not adopt his religion because they were pagans, he started writing scriptures, borrowing from the Bible to try to appeal to the Jews who were the wealthy merchants in Quraysh. He was trying to appeal to them to adopt his religion as well as the Christians. And when he went to them, to Medina, and they refused to adopt his religion, this is when he turned against them. And this is when all the verses in the Quran became nasty. And this is when we hear all the verses about cut off the heads of the infidels, smite them on their necks, cut off their heads, and smite off all their fingers and toes because they disobeyed Allah. This is when Surah 5 came in, and then all the other surahs speaking about jihad, intolerance, killing of the infidels, submitting, and the submission of Christians and Jews, where they have to pay the jizya or the protection tax just to stay alive. And in the Quran, there is the law of abrogation. If there are two verses in the Quran contradicting each other, it is the last